Yeah, look, we can get into it. It makes me feel like a nut because back in like 20 fucking 15 or something, I got into this case big time. And the thing about this case is it's sucked in thousands and thousands of people trying to solve it like a Rubik's Cube. It's so insane. And I got into it big time for like a week a couple years ago, and it was fucking with my head. And I was literally like asking other people, like, if you talked to me during that week, I would have like told you about this whole case. It was crazy. But the thing is, it does that to a lot of people. So last weekend after the show, I dipped back into it to revise my notes that I had before and kind of just went down a rabbit hole again. Like I went back down the rabbit hole that I already been down. Like whose footprints are those? Those are my footprints. I've fucking been here before. And it's just so crazy. And look, I went to 3 websites of the most well-known missing persons cases. 3 websites. She was on 2 of the lists. On the first website, on insider.com, she was number 3 on the list of most well-known missing persons cases. She was behind like Amelia Earhart and like DB Cooper or something. I mean, it's really crazy. And it's put together to where it's unsolvable. It's fucking unsolvable. That's the thing. So I don't know. What do you want me to just go into this?
I mean, you've already laid out the,
Okay.
laid out groundwork. Let's hear.
Okay. I'm putting my feet up on the chair. Okay. She disappeared on February 9th, 2004. 21 years old, 5'7", 120 pounds. She's a long distance track state champion. Okay, it's important to know that because at the end of this, I'm going to tell you the 4 most famous theories that the thousands of people, armchair detectives, real detectives, FBI, everybody falls, you fall into one of the 4 theories, okay? Unless you're picking like alien abduction, the 4 realistic theories. So long distance track state champion. I'm saying that because that's, it plays into it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about like before the car crash and after the car crash. Okay, before the car crash.
Okay.
She's going to school in Amherst, Massachusetts, long distance track state champion, 21 years old. She sends an email to one of her professors saying she had a death in the family. Okay, this was a lie. She packed her dorm room into boxes and took her posters off the wall. She took $360 out of an ATM, which only left a couple bucks left in her account. I mean, it was probably like 364 in her account or whatever, and you can only go by 20s. So she took $360 out of an ATM. Security footage from the ATM shows that she was alone. She went to the liquor store and bought Kahlua, 6-pack of wine coolers, and a box of wine.
Okay.
Security footage from the liquor store shows that she was alone. Okay. She drove from her school in Amherst, Massachusetts, 135 miles north before she crashed. And this was in February, remember. While she's driving, she calls her dorm landline to check her messages. And this is 2004. She stops once to get gas. That's important to note, too, because it falls into another person's theory. She stops at least once to get gas.
Is there footage?
Okay, that's before... What?
Is there footage of that?
I've never seen any. I'm not sure if there is or not. I think here's what I think. I think there was footage, but the footage doesn't show if anybody was following her. Okay.
Okay.
Not clearly. Okay. The crash. Okay. She's on a curving road. So it's not like it's not like a stop and a turn. It's like a curving road, single two lane road or whatever. And this is kind of like, I mean, if you're from Idaho, like we are, it's kind of like an Idaho road, like a single lane, you're curving, there's trees everywhere, there's snow everywhere. And this is 7:30 at night. So it's dark out. Okay. So she's on a curving road. She's not on the highway anymore. She crashed her car in Haverhill, New Hampshire. Okay. She's now 135 miles north of where she was going to school. A nearby resident, Faith Westman, heard the crash and called 911. She could see the crash from her window. So on this curving road, it's like, I mean, there's like a red barn. She passes the red barn. She's curving and then crashes right on the turn. But there's like there's like 3 houses around that area. They're not like, right on the road, but there's 3 houses that are kind of like spread out but can see the road. So Faith Westman calls 911 as soon as the crash happens. Boom. She could see the crash from her window. She could see the car. After Faith calls, a school bus driver, Butch Atwood, stops at the crash, opens his bus door, and talks to Maura. She begs him not to call 911. She tells him she already called AAA. Okay, that was a lie. She did not call AAA. At 7:48, okay, crash was around 7:27. At 7:48, Butch Atwood's wife calls 911 because he lived like 600 yards east of the crash. After he had talked to Maura, left the scene, backed his school bus into his driveway, and went inside, then he told his wife, hey, call 911. A girl crashed. She's a little freaked out. But, from 7:27 to 7:48, I would guess that it's not that easy to back a school bus into your driveway. I guess he does it every day, but it still probably took him fucking 10 minutes to talk to her, back it in, walk into his house. Okay. So by 7:54, the cop arrived at the crash, probably from that initial call. His report says no Maura at the scene. Windshield was cracked. Both airbags deployed. Car had hit a tree and spun around 180 degrees, facing the wrong way, so facing back from the way she was coming.
Mm-hmm.
The vehicle was locked. She took her wallet and phone and keys. Okay. He could see the box of wine in the back seat, and it had exploded, covering the inside of the car. There was a bottle of like a Coca-Cola bottle that was half full, but it had alcohol in it. And there was a rag stuffed. Yeah, it did.
So she was drinking.
And there was a rag stuffed into the tailpipe, which everyone is always going crazy about, the rag stuffed in the tailpipe. Rag stuffed in the tailpipe. And then back in the day when I'm going crazy, I actually asked my mechanic when he was working on my car, I'm like, why would somebody stuff a rag in the tailpipe of their car? And I don't remember what he said, but there was a rag stuffed in the tailpipe. Okay, so after the crash, the next day, a police dog tracked her scent using one of her gloves. The dog tracked it 100 yards down the road, in the middle of the road. Then the trail stopped. Missing person cases are usually handled by local and state police, but within 10 days, the FBI had got involved, and they also announced the search was now nationwide. New Hampshire Fish and Game conducted a ground search using tracking dogs and cadaver dogs, and an air search using helicopters and thermal imaging cameras. Because this is a mountainous area. But I mean, thermal imaging cameras from a helicopter to me seems like foolproof.
Yeah.
Her case has been cited as the first mystery crime of the social media age. Because some fun fact, Facebook was created like 5 days after this accident, but there was no YouTube, there's no Twitter, and I mean, it's crazy how this case became like just so many people obsess over it. So the 4 main theories would be abducted and killed, ended her own life, started a new life in Canada. Everyone says she went to Canada. If she was going to start a new life, she went to Canada, or wandered into the woods and died. It was snowing that night, below freezing temps. And so back to the timing thing, I mean, you're talking about like 20 minutes from the crash to the cops showing up. But in that time, the bus driver stopped and talked to her. So you got to take like 5 minutes off of that. So you're talking about 15 minutes basically. And my timing's not down to the fucking minute, but like a 15-minute period where someone literally vanished off the face of the planet, and no credible sighting ever since. No use of the phone, of an ID anywhere, anything like that. And it is so fucking insane how nobody has figured it out.
Well, okay, right? I don't know if you're going to keep going here, but fucking...
No, I'm not.
First thing I think is you can scratch out, unless, I mean, I give it in the single digits possibility that she goes into the woods. why would you go into the woods? That doesn't
Well,
make
people
any.
say she might have hit her head when she crashed and just started
So
walking.
that's what I'm saying. I'll give it some percentage that she's like concussed and doesn't know what she's doing and just like banana. But I don't believe that either. Have you? I've been around a few people that are concussed, and even though they're like don't really know what's happening to them, you're not like you're not dumb. You if you're on a road and it's snowing, you're not just gonna start zombieing out into the woods. You know what I mean? You're gonna
Yeah.
stay, especially in the snow. You're gonna stay on the road. Like she
Or
stayed on the.
like,
There's no way she
yeah.
didn't stay on the road. The rag in the tailpipe. It seems like you're irritated with that. That is super weird. Like that is bananas weird. And
I
the
know.
only you're saying you don't. I've that used. That's a thing. You know what I mean? Sticking like a banana up someone's tailpipe or an orange or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's going to kill the car. Is it not? Like, isn't that what's going to happen? Like the
I mean,
exhaust,
they're
the exhaust isn't escaping anymore, and it's going to, back up. It's not. You're going to kill the motor.
well, there's people that say like I used to drive this old shit box or whatever, and I always had to keep a rag in the tailpipe in order to like keep it running. And I'm just going off like YouTube commenters saying shit like that. And people about the gas stopping at the gas station, they're like, that's when a killer saw her and like put the rag there and then followed her and waited.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
she crashed and then they saw the bus driver. And then after that, they moved in.
So I give that a good pot. That's probably what happened. If she made it down the road, they tracked it, and then she just disappears off the road, just vanishes. So
Yeah.
he goes, parks the bus, then the person continues, you know what I mean? And then picks her up. And
But
then
she locked her car and took her shit.
she took her purse, her keys, and her phone.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. And locked it. Which if I'm locking it, that means I'm planning on coming back to it. Right.
Well, no. So she does that. She locks the car, and then she goes walking, and then the guy comes up and picks her up on the road.
And she gets into his car.
Or he might force her into the car. Either he talks her into getting in the car, or he forces her into the car. Now I haven't seen pictures of this, but now I kind of want to see pictures of like the road and the house. To
Yeah,
get
it's
a better
crazy. Yeah,
because
yeah.
um
This is what happens to everybody.
where the bus is, where this guy is, he's lost visuals of where the crash is.
Yeah. It's like 600 yards down the road where his
What
house
about
is.
the lady you said that didn't you say there's another lady that could see the accident?
Yeah, there was two other people that saw the accident. One guy said, looking out of his window, said that he looked out, he saw Maura standing next to her car. Then he went back into his house. The next time he looked out, the cops were there. And that one lady called 911 immediately as the crash happened, and she's looking out of her house and she could see the car there. But
And
nobody saw somebody else fucking take this girl away.
has through your research has anyone said like traffic on this road? Was there just zero, or did cars drive by during this? Or
that's a good question. When I was trying to describe the road, it's like it's almost like if there was traffic, it'd be like the neighbors of the road, like local traffic, but not a lot of traffic. And nobody knows why the fuck she was going up there. Like, why would she pack her dorm? Why would she lie about a death in the family, buy all that alcohol, clean out her bank account, and go up there and not tell anybody about it? So people are like, where was she going? Why was she driving up there? It's fucking weird.
That is very weird. So you said last week that there was a theory about a boyfriend or something like that, an ex-boyfriend?
Yeah, or she had a current boyfriend, but he was like out of state at the time. He was like in Texas or something. And I mean, I don't know why she would have been going up there. And then, there's one writer, a guy named James Renner, who was like the first guy to dive into this case. He wrote a book about it. He wrote a book, and in the end of the book, his theory is that she had her boyfriend was abusive. She found out she was pregnant, and she she staged this whole thing to run away to Canada, and she's living in Quebec, and like, you know, just to protect the kid. And that was his theory, and that's just a real crazy fucking theory because he doesn't have anything to base it off of, really. I mean, he might have stuff to base it off of, but never been like a sighting. There's never been a sighting of this girl.
And nowadays, I mean, dude, you can only do so much without a social security number. Like, what do you mean? You don't get to just go live anonymously anymore in the world. Like,
right.
Without a structure of, okay, I've seen this firsthand, people that are able to, but they're not like running away from an identity. But here in Portland, with the Mexican scene, is that actually happens a lot with Mexicans, is illegals come over, like, and what they'll do is they'll all use one social security number, and they'll all work under the same social security number. Like, so you'll get a family of Mexicans or 10 Mexican dudes, and they'll just put one social security number for 10 Mexicans. And just like, you know, that's how they do it. But it's like, there, you know, if there's any real digging into it, you're going to figure out, you know what I mean? Like, if the IRS went into you'd figure it out. You know what I mean? There's so many people doing it that they just don't really care. You know what I mean?
Right. And
but
for 16 years,
you don't get to go. But, you know, if, let's say they wanted to find a certain like Mexican doing this, they're going to find him. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to figure it out. There's only so much in this day and age. You can't just hide. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, unless she's living in a cave in Quebec and hasn't talked to anybody in 20 years. Like, that's the only possibility. How are you going to rent an apartment? You know, there's how are you going to do any of that?
Yeah. And it's like there was a documentary TV series on like the ID channel or something that dove into this. And at the end of the documentary series, their theory was abducted by a killer. So we have one writer with the book who his theory is ran away, staged this whole thing. Then the documentary series is abducted by a killer. And the podcast, Missing Maura Murray podcast, is amazing. And that really fucking really ramps up your investigation. But you have to start at episode 1. Don't start at like their last episode 1. And
yeah,
you got to think. I would bet $1 million against she crashed her car. She's standing next to it, and a serial killer drives by and grabs her. There's no chance, because you're talking about like a 15-minute window, and you're talking about an individual who has to be capable of like abduction and murder in the same thing. Like, no way, not happening.
Well, but what do you mean? What if he picks her at the gas station?
Well, that would be almost more likely, I guess, just because there's more people.
But
that's
then
crazy.
Now I want to know if she stopped at a gas station, but she could have stopped somewhere else and you don't even know she stopped. You know what I mean?
Correct. Yep.
But I want to see the footage of her stopping at the gas station, because either there is no footage of it, they didn't have security cameras, but if, you know, the theory in my mind, there would be a theory to where that's where someone saw her and stuffed something in her tailpipe, you know?
Yeah.
Either something she didn't drive the 120 some miles with something stuffed in her tailpipe. She stopped and it got put in, or she put it in, which that wouldn't make any sense. Why would she go put a rag in her tailpipe?
Right.
I don't know.
The rag in the tailpipe. Everyone's always rag in the tailpipe. And that didn't get found until after the car was impounded, because the car got impounded that night. It got towed.
So the control isn't even that good of a you know, there's too much time there. If you're saying that they didn't find that till the next day, now there's too much time. You know what I mean? Someone could have done that in transportation. Like,
that's, yeah. So I guess you couldn't say for 100% fact the rag was there when the crash happened, but most likely it was, unless a tow truck driver put it in, which that doesn't make any sense either.
Wait a second. How do they not have that figured out? Like, if
the cop didn't see it when he pulled up to the trash
before they towed the car away, don't they take pictures? Like, it's like a crime scene at that point, is it not?
No, the pictures of the car, there's pictures of her crashed car, and it's in the impound lot.
How did they not take pictures of the car in the crash? Like,
I don't know. It's in the middle. It's fucking dark out.
Just some backwoods cop, like, not caring and just
and
doesn't think it's a
Yeah,
big
and
deal.
I think, like, say if there's a missing persons report put out on somebody, I'm like, I don't just automatically go to, we're never gonna fucking see this person again. I feel like it's only gonna be like a day or two, and then they're gonna turn up, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was just a big one here in Portland a few months ago, and yeah, at the beginning it was like, oh, she'll show up in a day, and then it's yeah, and with most things like that, yeah, it's every day it just starts changing. You know what I mean? At first, you're like,
Yeah,
oh, they just ran away from home. You know what I mean? They're
right,
hanging out at their boyfriend's house. You know, blah
right.
blah. Get a few weeks, this will all be over with, and then as time goes on, like, oh shit, they're probably dead. You know what I mean? Like,
It's such a weird case, and it's like if I had like if a genie gave me like I don't know 10 or 20 like uses of a time machine, it'd be real interesting to go back and just like be hiding in the bushes and see what happens.
what if it was you that stuffed it in the tailpipe? You
Right.
know what I mean?
Oh
Fuck,
God,
fucking
no,
time. It's Brad. He was the one that did it this whole time.
dude. Seriously, that's like what it is. Someone went back in time and did something, and now we'll never have an answer. It's so fucking weird. It's
Yeah.
so weird how because the thing about the case is like whenever you develop your theory, you start fleshing it out kind of, and then you hit a roadblock that's like, oh, okay, I guess it can't be that. Then you're like, wait, what if? And then it's like, nope. And then it's like, oh, okay, every time you start to progress with it, it's like, no, it didn't. You're
That's
wrong.
irritating. I don't think I can get into this. I think when we get it, I got to just let this go because I am
Yeah,
not good with not having closure to things. You know what I mean? Like I'm not good with
dude.
that. But it already bugs me. It's already bugging me, and the fact that you'll never know. We'll never know. You know, that's
Yeah.
it. It irritates me. There's something
And I
about
feel
that.
bad. I feel bad for the family because there's a lot of interviews with the dad and stuff, and a lot of people like the armchair detectives online, which I'm wondering if that fucking phrase came from this case. But a lot of them are like, it was her dad, like he's a fucking alcoholic piece of shit or whatever. But you see interviews with the guy, and you're just like, holy shit, dude, he misses his daughter so much. It is so that's talk about not having closure. But the real problem was just diving into that podcast because you're going like episode by episode and they break it down hardcore. And then your mind starts thinking like, that's when you start thinking for yourself kind of and fucking taking notes down like a, like a fucking madman.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's good
Yeah,
though. I like it.
I don't know if I could listen to that podcast because it's already like irritating me. I don't like it.
Maybe you'll be the one that figures it out.
Yeah, yeah,